Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. It's the Eradicator, and finally today we are going to have our review of Star Citizen for 3.17. It's a tradition that dates back to the year 2019 where I started to begin this process back for 3.3.5. Yeah, that doesn't make us any younger, right? And so for each of these updates, I've been evaluating the patches based on precise criteria, and so that's exactly, again, what we are going to be doing with this video. Now, a little clarification here. A lot of people have been asking, Erad, why wasn't there a review of Star Citizen for 3.16? And the reason is the following. It's very easy. 3.16 was not 3.16. 3.16 was actually 3.15.2. Even the developers did say that. They even said that even internally they were calling that their own patch 3.15.2. So that's why I thought that it was a little bit futile to be doing this test, because 3.15 had already been tested. Alright, so that's it. Without further ado, let's get started with our very first category here, and these are, of course, bug fixes. And sure, 3.17 is far from being out of bugs. There are plenty of them. Obviously, it's still an alpha, right? And we have to keep in mind that for a very long time, 3.17 in the PTU at least was simply impossible to play with. It was so broken that you couldn't do anything about it. Sometimes you could not even log in. So yeah, right now there are still a little bit of a few issues when it comes to entity loading. Yes, sometimes the inventory system is not very responsive. Sometimes when you do a combat beacon, nobody is showing up. Sometimes barmen are on strike, or there's maybe one last NPC in the 819 jump mission that we cannot find. But we also have to admit that quantum jumps are still far more reliable than they were before. Asteroids, for the most part, are scannable, which was not the case before. Your equipments go back into your original inventory once they are equipped. They don't go back to the inventory once they are equipped. They stay with you. Eating and drinking now prevent you from dying of thirst and hunger, which sound natural, but it was not the case before, right? So it's really, it is undeniable that this 3.17 patch has been the focus of an effort that was made to give the impression to players that Star Citizen is working properly for the most part. Now, of course, this took some time, a lot of time, but overall, I believe that we are benefiting from a quality experience, and this is why it is worth an 8 out of 10. Next, we're going to talk about quality of life, and I think that in 3.17 there have been a couple of subtle improvements that are making a difference, and one of them is, for example, the little indicator here that tells you your direction. It tells you where your ship is going towards, and I think that it's very practical, especially as a content creator, because it really tells me where I'm going, and it's preventing, for example, when I'm shooting in third-person view, it's preventing a couple of unfortunate crashes that I've had to deal with in the past, so I like that very much. We used to have this little pip in the past, especially back in the days of the Alpha 2.x cycle, but it had disappeared over time, and I'm glad that it's coming back. We could also see that there's been a couple of new commodities in the journal, including plasma fuel and medical supplies. Speaking of plasma fuel, or fuel in general, we'll be very happy to know that the refueling interface has been fully converted into building blocks, just like ship terminals as well as shop terminals as well, and overall this is making our experience more fluid and more reliable, and that really like that. Speaking of fluidity, how can we not talk about the grand debuts of Gen 12, which is bringing this whole lot of improvements, especially when it comes to performance. Now, sure, we would say that these quality of life improvements are quite discrete this semester, but when you add one to the other, it's quite obvious that they offer a much better experience, and this is why I'll give this category here an 8 out of 10. Let's talk about the global quality here, and as I said earlier, an effort was made to offer players a decent experience without any major game-breaking bugs, which we talked about before, and this was not an easy task, as we could see in the PTU phase. For example, we can remember that buildings were starting to shake at the last minute in the very last few patches, right? Which we don't need to worry about anymore. Developers also made sure that they could reduce the amount of 30k errors to as little as possible, although they still appear from time to time. I tend to have about one every day, but not that much though. I would also think that even though we don't have the same stability levels as in previous patches, overall it still is a decent patch. Now, there are a couple of things that we still need to talk about. For example, the inventory system is still dysfunctional, but that's always going to be the case until we have a system that is completely revamped, because everything is going to be physicalized eventually. I would say that quantum jumps sometimes have very low frames, but it's just when you are in a transition of normal space to quantum space. Overall, it's still working pretty much decently. And even though we have Gen 12, I would say that performances around Horizon are still not as good as what we would be expecting. So that's why here we're going to be giving it a 6 out of 10. Let's talk about changing factors here. And overall, 3.17 is following the efforts that were made in 3.15 and 3.16, and is also polishing some of the work that was done over the past 6 or, well, 7 months because of the delays, right? We would also notice a couple of adjustments around hunger and thirst that we are going to now have to take under consideration when you are playing. We need to drink and eat far more than before, as well as injuries toward which you are going to have to pay more attention to as well. A couple of weapons have been modified, including the Gallant Energy Rifle, which is now only firing with bursts. And recalls are also a little bit stronger as well. But finally, Tony Zorovic's quantum simulation is making its first steps, and at the beginning it's only going to be concerning the prices of some goods like fuel, as well as repairs and vehicle rentals as well. Overall, well, we do have some change in 3.17, but these changes are made in the continuity of previous patches. They are not going to be changing our habits that much, and that's why we'll just give it a 5 out of 10. Now, next we're going to talk about added content, and before we start here, I want to say that we can only say how unfortunate it is that Cloud Imperium is really lacking consideration for its own roadmap. I mean, you just need to have a look at the roadmap to see that the new features that are there only represent a fraction of what has been really being delivered by developers this semester. And I think that it's unfortunate, because if the roadmap had probably been curated, I think that the community would have perhaps better appreciated all the work that was done for Star Citizen at 3.17. So, for example, we've had a little bit of, as I said, weapon handling. We have weapon handling V2, which is happening with this patch. And, well, of course, only the most experienced players will be able to feel that. But nevertheless, it's still there. 3.17 also, I would say, focuses more on the backend services, on the background tech, than what players really get to see. So that's why it's also not really easy to appreciate that. And nevertheless, it still is encouraging, and we'll give it a 7 out of 10. Next, let's talk about the features, and we'll talk about well, the first features that we're going to talk about are the characters. Now, Star Citizen 3.17 is offering a brand new collection of clothing that NPCs are wearing. We could, for example, see women wearing skirts. That's right. I was very shocked and impressed to see some ladies finally having some decent clothes that I don't know. I like to see that, right? Overall, these clothes will be available for players to be buying in the future, but it's not really the case right now. Now, character creation has also been reworked a little bit for a more realistic rendering. Especially, this was symbolized by Eye Moist, which is really making the looks of our characters. Our characters look so much better with Eye Moist. It's just unbelievable the change. How one small change is actually making a big difference. I really appreciate that very much, and creating my own character was a very enjoyable process for Star Citizen 3.17. And I think that it is quite on par with Chris Roberts' vision. I don't know if you remember back in 2012, but character creation was actually a big part of the original presentation, where Chris was really telling us how proud it was of his character models back in the original presentation. And I think that this is the fact that we're getting this update stays true to the original idea, the original concept. Next, we're going to talk about locations, and there's... Oh, I forgot to say, 5 out of 10. Next, we're going to talk about locations, and there's not much to be talking about locations in 3.17, apart from the hospital at Lorville, Maria Pure of Heart, which is absolutely excellent. All the work done by the team at Montreal has been excellent. Some relays have also been rearranged a little bit, just to make sure that they are not the same from one station to another. It's good work, but it doesn't revolutionize the game, and that barely deserves the average of 5 out of 10. It's a little bit short. Talking about AI here, and we have an employee who can serve coffee when the server decides that she eventually work, and that's basically it. It's better than nothing, but it's only worth 1 out of 10. Gameplay now, and I would say that this update here is bringing 3 major new gameplay functions. First, the mining gadgets, which are going to be allowing miners to finally fracture rocks that were unable to be fractured before, especially if you had like a base prospector. Personally, I like them very much, and I really believe that I'm going to do more mining in 3.17 thanks to those. We also have new terminals now that finally allow us to resell all the loot that we can find all over the verse, and I'm sure that this is going to be encouraging exploration and the search for some of these loot boxes that can be found pretty much everywhere. We would also say, speaking of that the looting system has been reworked a little bit in order to be offering to some of the boldest players out there better rewards. And I think it's also a little bit more coherent as well, because it just makes sense, right? Because now we can find objects that are linked to the location where we are. For example, when you are in a hab at one of the outposts, you're going to be finding clothes. But if you're in a bunker, you'll be finding weapons. It definitely makes sense, and that's something that I wanted to see in a previous patch. Overall, I think that these new functions have quite a major impact on the quality of the experience that we are having in this patch, and that's why we're going to be giving them a 5 out of 10. It's not a lot, but the few items that we have do make quite a big of a difference. Next, let's talk about ships. And don't take it wrong, but the Hull A, despite its qualities that we talked about on the channel, is still, well, that's the only ship that was available at the release of 3.17, so that's why it's not that much. Sure, we're going to have the RSI Scorpius, and perhaps a surprise from Drake coming up during the event that's going to be happening at the end of the month, but it's still not there. It's still the future, right? Still hypothetical, so that's why we'll give it a 3 out of 10. It's really not a lot, just one ship for the update at this rate. We're not going to be done anytime soon, given all the other ships that still need to be done. Talking about weapons and objects, there's not much to be talking about here. A little bit of a rework when it comes to weapon handling, and the Gallant Energy Rifle has been reworked in order to be firing in 3 or in volleys of 3 or 4 or 5 bolts. So that's not very groundbreaking, and that's why it gets a 2 out of 10. Technologies now, and Star Citizen is offering more than what the roadmap may make you think about. For example, we knew that Hurston would get its volumetric clouds, but we would totally not imagine that the verse would be populated by thousands of NPCs in the background that we cannot see right now, but are already influencing several areas of the economy thanks to the debuts of Tony Zorovik's quantum technology, and that is big deal, guys. A huge work has also been done for Physics Grid, which now allow the Hull A to deploy and retract its cargo panel. This is work that was done previously. For example, it allowed ship-to-ship docking, but it is finalizing this semester here, and that's why this gets a 7 out of 10. Already, I think that a big chunk of that goes to Tony Zorovik's quantum mechanics here. So that's pretty much it for the features of 3.17, and I would say that apart from a few major milestones, 3.17 is not really breaking new grounds, and that's why the average here is a 4 out of 10, which is not a surprise because we're still blocked by server meshing, which hopefully is around the corner, but we still really don't know. We hope it comes by the end of this year, but until server meshing is coming, we're not going to get major features. Next is the last criterion here, and that is the fun factor, and we are going to finish this review by saying that the improvements of the looting system and the possibility to resell the looting here really adds a lot to really contributes to making Star Citizen Alpha 3.17 a more interesting and compelling experience. I really want to say that the mining gadgets, for me at least, put forward the profession of mining, which for me was not very interesting before, but now it definitely is more interesting and more challenging, and I like the idea of just going out of the ship back and forth instead of just staying behind the cockpit and pushing the buttons for the lasers. That's definitely more interesting, and I like just going outside and experiencing the environment. So that's why this patch is definitely more fun for me. These are good decisions in my opinion that make Star Citizen going towards the right direction, and that's why I'll give it an 8 out of 10. And now the time has come to finish this video and give Star Citizen Alpha 3.17 a final grade, and that score is going to be 6.5 out of 10, which in the history of the reviews that I've been making since 2019 is a good score. This update here benefits from a lot of work that was done in previous patches, and also I think that gives a couple of changes that allow for an excellent replayability. Now, we are going to be perhaps complaining that some of the new features are not very memorable overall, but nevertheless, it still is a pretty decent patch. And that is all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget that, of course, this month we have a giveaway. We are giving away 2 MISC expenses. We're giving away one for you guys, the subscribers of this channel. Make sure you're in public setting and answer the question I'm asking right now. What is the biggest milestone or achievement for 3.17? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you want to help out this channel, maybe you've noticed that quality has a little bit improved over the past couple of weeks. That is because my Patreons and my YouTube Jump members are really encouraging me to work harder, and couldn't thank you guys enough. If you want to help out as well, the links are in the description down below. Any help over there is appreciated. You will also get access to exclusive content and my Discord channel, where we have the second MISC expense that we'll be giving away there as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. A big shout out to DR.FORBIN, ERIK, OLNE, THEDJDUNN, Captain Snake, and GEEKCITIZEN. It's the Eradicator. I will see you guys later. A huge shout out to everyone who's been helping me out on Patreon and via the YouTube Join membership program. Creating content on YouTube involves continuous circles of ups and downs, and it is when we are the lower parts of the curve that your help really motivates me to keep on going. Your contribution really does make a difference, which is why in return I try to give back by offering backers access to my private Discord channel, automatic access to exclusive giveaways, or answering your questions during the show. You can help me out with as little as $1 a month, and any help is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for watching again. This is the Eradicator. I'll see you guys later.